Thanks. Sounds like it was a pretty big party I missed yesterday, but I've got almost no voice. So if I had gone to the party yesterday, there would have been no keynote. So or a solo show by Jorgen. So.
No, so we're happy that we're here. We made it.
But absolutely, it's great. Thank you everyone for making it this morning. We hope that we'll make it interesting for you. And I think I'll go right into it and let you do most of the talking, so I can, because I've got to keep this voice for half an hour. So Jorgen, why did you buy eRepublik Labs? Why did Stillfront acquire eRepublik Labs?
I think we have a philosophy of finding the right studios. We have, for the last 3 years, we have scanned over 1,000 studios globally, and we have invested in only 5, so it's 0.5%, less than that actually. So we know exactly what we're looking for, and eRepublik matched those criteria very well, and that's all about, it's about a lot of things, but some of them are that we should have a studio that is high quality, have a proven track record of producing high quality games for quite a while, and both have the understanding of building games, how to monetize on them, and the business building side as well. Yeah. So we think we saw that in eRepublik, and we also, from another perspective, is that when we invest from Stillfront Group, it's because we would like to accelerate the business. Yeah. And in order to accelerate the business jointly with the studio, because that's our model, we have to share a number of things like philosophy, how we should cooperate and everything. And basically it's very much down to us facilitating for the studios to accelerate, and that we saw in eRepublik, amongst a lot of other things.
Okay, so you actually looked at 1,000 studios over the past, what, 2-3 years?
Yes.
And you've acquired 5.
That's correct.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
That's nice for us. It's a nice small select group. But I think that the thing for me that I really thought was interesting about the Stillfront approach was different to some of the other kind of studios that or larger companies, game companies that we spoke with at the time, was this kind of decentralized approach and vision that you have, you know, of an alliance of autonomous studios working together and collaborating together and all that. To me, that's really what sold me on the Stillfront offering. So how did you come about that idea, and can you tell us a bit more about it? Because to me, it reminds me a lot of, you know, Supercell's approach with the cells and the game teams and all that, but at a company multi-studio level, which is interesting.
Yeah, and it stems from a point in time which is previous Supercell, so it's not a way of copying that, even though it's a fantastic company, obviously. But it comes from, I've founded 4 companies, beginning my entrepreneurship back in '95. And I did it the classical way the first time, so we grew from 3 guys in the basement to 550 people in 28 months. And that was fantastic. It was back in the heydays, 99 to 2000. But all of a sudden, our solutions didn't have the same customers. So, and we had this traditional structure of management and everything. So I basically made 1,000 errors that you could do with building a company. Hopefully, some good things as well. Then I founded another 3 companies, amongst one was a software company sold to Electronic Arts. So I've been around building companies. And one thing has really come to my mind, and that is, if you can keep the spirit and the agility of the small company much longer, but still combine it with scale and structure, that must be the perfect organizational model for building the high-quality company that I would like to participate to build. And that means that you need to be decentralized. You need to run different units or different studios with a high degree of autonomously. And my task and the few central people who are in the organization, our task is to give whatever we can in order to improve the possibilities for eRepublik and the other studios we are to grow faster and to be more profitable and to prosper better. And I think that so far we have been quite successful. We have been growing by some 50 to 100% on annual basis. We have gone public on Nasdaq Nordic, which is a good receipt on that we fulfill the criteria with this decentralized structure.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I loved about decentralized structure is when you and Sten, the CFO, invited me to come and visit you in Stockholm. So I remember I walk in, it's this beautiful period building, like beautiful offices and all that. So I was like, oof, you know, these guys must have really high HQ costs. I'm not sure this is a good idea. And then I walk in, and you say, well, hi, this is the team. It was Stan and you, and this is a public company on NASDAQ with 7 studios at the time and all that, which really, I think it really brought it home to me that, like, it's not just talk, this decentralized approach. It's really, it's truly the reality. And it's an enabler. So I thought that was really interesting. Another thing that I saw, and I'd like to see if this is something that you'd foreseen, is by taking this decentralized approach of an alliance of studios, one of the things that I've seen is, because before eRepublik, you know, I spent 6 years at the company, a startup called lastminute.com, and it was very much a classical startup as well. When I started with them, we were like 37. We grew to 2,500 people. We made 14 acquisitions. We were also public and lots of stuff. And the integrations were a nightmare. Yeah. It was like integrating companies and mixing technologies and who's in charge of this and who's in charge of that. And tech should be central and politics. It was a nightmare. And what I'm seeing here with your approach, what I thought was interesting was integration is extremely light because you're letting the studios run their destiny. In terms of founder alignment is perfect because now I'm a shareholder in Stillfront, so obviously I want the whole thing to do well. And then the third thing is the team is really motivated because they still have the freedom and of doing the things they were doing before, but there's obviously the security and pride of being part of something bigger, something larger. So is that something that from the beginning you thought this is what I should be doing, or?
Yeah, because I would like to add to that picture or continue that those ideas, because that is a key element. Because what we saw, and also what I saw as being an entrepreneur building companies from scratch myself, was that you often come into a situation where we're not optimizing what is really best for the business long term, because you're a bit risk avert, or either you go to take too large risks, which you really can't handle. When being in a structure, being in a family, which we call Stillfront Group, you have the family to back you up. Both when it goes well, we can accelerate. I mean, we have the funds that's sufficient for, I mean, we have funds similar to any publisher you can find. So we have a corporate bond structure where we can draw on 65 million euros for user acquisitions. So we have all the funds to really fuel a success that is potentially not getting the fuel it should have. But also when it comes to developing new products, because we see that often you have 1 or 2 fairly or good delivering cash cows, which is paying your salaries and the rent and everything, and you get a bit hesitant about taking the next step. You have often the studios that we meet, including eRepublik, has several high potential ideas that they would like to develop further. But when it comes down to really taking the decision of investment, it's often the case that you're hesitant, or you're taking a budget which is a bit too low and not realizing the full potential of that product. So that was very much both from my own personal experience as well as what we saw on a number of studios way back. So I think that's a very strong accelerator in growth if you look from it on a group level, because we can both accelerate by adding new studios. So we have one axis adding new studios, as well as we can fuel and have organic growth on the other axis. So we have a 2-axis growth strategy, which has proven to be very good, especially if you consider the risk that we're taking, which is basically lower than on a group level than other comparable companies. So yes, it's one of the things that I saw when I founded the group, and I think I get it confirmed when I come out to meet the different studios that we talk to. So that's absolutely right. And that's also why it's so important, and one of the criteria when we look at new studios is that this is a studio that we believe can manage their own destiny, but we can provide more resources of different kinds, and we can also provide other studios in the similar situation that could share experiences, technologies, cross promotion, so we increase the possibility of getting it's basically a launch pad for a new product. So we increase the chances for the new products to come out. But still, it's the full responsibility and in the management of each studio.
Yeah.
So I think that model works quite well.
Yeah, no hand-holding necessary type studios. And then actually we've seen already we've had some exchanges with some of the other Stillfront studios, some in Germany, some in the US and all that, where exchanging tips about technology, how to do things and processes. So it's been really useful. But let's take a macro level and look like more at the industry in general right now. Do you think we're in a consolidation phase in the industry right now? If so, why do you think that is? And how long do you think it's going to last?
Obviously, we don't know exactly, but my view is the following: that it has been since the digital distribution takeover and the new business models of free-to-play and premium, for that sake, directly published from the developer, possible to publish from the developer. A lot of money has come in, flooded into from venture money and risk capital. So that has fueled a lot of the very good companies, but also potentially a few companies that
not so good.
Not so good, to be very direct and blunt. So, but that means that there are more supply than demand. I mean, it's a fantastic market. I know everybody here thinks that, but remember that the demand side is not expanding just because the supply side, the studios, receive more money. So it's an imbalance. So I think for sure that a lot of the companies that has been over-financed or has been able to receive the publisher money that they shouldn't have received, they will have a tougher time. So definitely it's a consolidation going on since a couple of years, I would say. I think it will accelerate. High-quality studios with high-quality products will for sure have a future which is bright. They can be in different structures in the future. We can see that.
But do you think there's kind of a size threshold, like that you could be a? Because I partially agree with what you're saying. Because I think in part, yes, there's a lot of kind of studios that have been funded, and then I know someone might actually my guess is they won't consolidate. They'll just be either very cheap talent acquisitions, or they'll just go out of business, and we're kind of seeing it. But then you have kind of, I think we're in a situation where we already kind of know a little bit who the winners are, who the big, really large winners are, who the medium-sized winners are, and you have quite a few smaller studios which are also doing very well, which are also profitable. I know that, but that maybe they're of a size where if they go it alone, it's going to be very hard for them to survive due to an increased competition and all that. So you think these studios, although they're doing very well, they really are in a need for consolidation?
I think consolidation will happen on that level. I'm sure about that. And I think that if you look at the market, there are the really large companies of different kinds, and there are a gazillion of very small companies. But in between, there are quite few. And I think that's not a natural structure of a mature industry. It will be a number of players in the mid-sized, and I think we have the ambition to be there, but with a model where we could facilitate for the profitable and good, healthy, high-quality studios that could live on their own, but they will have a better journey being part of a family. So we try to be exact in that position. But I think it will be tougher. I also think it will be tougher for pure publisher on the mobile side, for instance. So it will be a number of changes in the industry for the next coming 2, 3 years, 5 years.
So that's interesting. Like that, you were mentioning publishers just now, and I think you and I had a conversation at dinner yesterday about publishers, and I had a few people pitch me this morning, and some of them were saying, "Oh, I'm potentially looking for publisher deals and all that." And I think you and I have a very kind of strong opinion about the value that publishers actually bring to the table, in particular on mobile. I don't know if it's different on console and PC. So why don't you share your opinion, and I'll probably make it even
This could be a long, so I should try to keep it short. There are good publishers, and there will be good publishers with that really get a product going and get the traction needed. But there's also a number of pitfalls, and there's too many pure publishers, in my opinion, which don't have a cutting-edge marketing capability. They don't have the cutting-edge capabilities of monetizing and finding the secret sauce in that, because that's basically a few individuals in those organizations that are knowledge workers, and then they could start to work for eRepublik or some other of your studios out here, so they could easily move. So it's not a competitive advantage for the fact that they are publishers. And if you have a game that is performing, just as we have done, you could easily quote unquote raise money to fund already success games. So what that boils down to is that it caps the upside for many that goes with a traditional pure mobile publisher.
It's like a glass ceiling to the
yeah. So I mean, if it's already successful and you have the traction, then I think it's better ways to get leverage from that. And if you are in troubles because you need more money to fix your monetization, or as some products just don't fly, then I'm not sure that the average publisher out there will be the one that really keeps you, brings you up to speed again. So you have a limited upside, and you don't really have the downside protection that is usually the wording that you should get from a publisher. So I think there will be successful publisher, but most of them will either go out of business or integrate backwards so they have their own development.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I see also as an investor, I also see like publishers and all that, and actually, it's a pretty crappy business. So I'm even more extreme than you are on that. And actually, from a developer point of view, I can kind of understand why people might still want to work with publishers when they're doing premium games. But when they're doing free-to-play games that need live operations, for which the team has to really kind of, control everything end-to-end to understand how it works and all that, to me it sounds like complete craziness to go for to work with the free-to-play publishers. Although there are some that that could work well. So for me, I mean, I've been more extreme. So if anyone wanted to, if there's any publishers, free-to-play mobile publishers out there, I'm really sorry, but I don't like it.
But it's also, it differs. I mean, I've been working with publishers in many levels through many years, and one thing that is so obvious differently now with free-to-play mobile games is that it's so integrated, the live ops, what you do in the game. So development and live ops and marketing is so integrated. So it becomes very difficult if that's two different organizations with not having an alignment of interest. And that's also one of the ideas behind Stillfront, that when we invest in a company, we are very keen that key individuals, and we make acquisitions with partly shares, the same shares I have, Alexis have, and all the key individuals have more or less in the group. So we have an alignment of interest also from a financial perspective, which means it's easier to find solutions.
So we all share in the upside. We're all part of it. So actually, yeah, Stillfront's a better solution. And we have 60 million.
Yeah. So
so that's more than most mobile publishers for launching a game. So that's
just to comment on that.
Yeah.
The reason why we can raise that money with the good conditions is that we have the high quality studio approach with the independency and the decentralization. So we act as an investor, you could say, with this amount of money, and the investors that would like to go in public gaming companies, they like that approach because they know that I have the same interest that they have. So it's a very transparent method of allocating resources. So investors like that.
And I mean, and also I know from our perspective was always like for a long time, eRepublik were only dependent on eRepublik Labs, were only dependent on one game doing well, which is eRepublik.com, which was really hard for us, which was very because it's like we were always kind of struggling to assign resources to new games and all that. And then we worked extremely hard to work to a position where first we had to pivot to mobile because browser was declining a little bit. Then having our first mobile success, and then we had 2 games that we could rely on. So it's more of a portfolio approach. Now we have 3 games that we can rely on, and that gives you a lot more it's a lot more solid. It gives you a lot of kind of ability to kind of plan ahead and do things. But now that we're part of Stillfront, it's how many core games in the portfolio?
14 currently.
14. There's 14, profitable, strong games in the portfolio. So that gives you really a kind of a different approach to how you're thinking. And actually, one of the things that people were asking me were like, aren't you concerned? And I'd love to have your opinion about this. And building on what I just said, aren't you concerned that this kind of consolidation approach, kind of smaller and medium-sized studios like ourselves, like kind of joining together to become a bigger studio that can be publicly traded and the stock market and all that, and in a situation where investors, they expect quarterly financial returns, a certain stability. So one of the questions that was asked is, aren't you concerned that that's going to limit your creativity and your ability to innovate? You're going to become like those big companies that do football game number 15, and every year they release another one, or is that? Yeah.
My vision and what I've seen so far, as we have been growing the Stillfront group and the Stillfront family of now 8 studios, is that it's rather the opposite actually. That we increase the creativity in the meaning that now an individual studio actually can do their project that they are planning on. It will not necessarily be all of them a success, because then we will be alchemists. So that we don't have any secrets, but we do allow one studio to actually take the step with the new product that they might not have done if they were be on their own. So because we can balance it over 8 studios. So, and as we all know, it takes some time to take a product to the market. So we balance it over the whole group instead of just having, if you publish the 4th game, it's 25% of your portfolio. Yep. Even though you have a portfolio and you do it very well, if it's 1 out of 15 or 20 soon, it's obviously only 5%. So we allow that, and we encourage that creativity to get out, and that's one of the criteria. That's why it's one of the criteria that we believed that we can see that the creativity exists in the studios that we're looking for. So it's really a case where we can expand the pace or increase the pace.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've seen that also kind of helps the creativity is the fact that that you're able to see what we're able to see now with other studios. For example, in the US, this is one studio that's done a really good, PvP game called Siege Titans. And that's a space obviously we're looking at, so we're able to we have access to all the metrics, the real metrics, not bullshit metrics that people will tell you. So all of that sort of stuff is really helpful, because when you want to when you want to create into something new, very often it's like you don't know where you're getting into, you have hearsay from other people. To actually have access to the real numbers of something close to what you want to build next, I think is really really helpful, and it's something that we're seeing actually is already benefiting. I mean, we can't go into details because we're a public company, but we can see it's really benefiting us, and we're seeing great results.
And it's not only that; it's both technology, but it's also monetization. How did you solve that retention problem? Since we're completely transparent between the studios, so you know the exactly numbers and the challenges that they had at Bytro, or the benefits and the good stuff that they made at Semitronics in the US, just as you were sharing several things that you have been very good at, theme selection processes and other stuff, that has been really, really valuable for the other studios already, and we're only a couple of months into this when you joined. So it's tangible assets, it's tangible benefits, that is very hands-on. So, and that's part of the process. When we meet a new studio, it's not me or Stillfront trying to convince somebody. It's a mutual thing, that if we're convinced mutually that we will perform better together than separately, then it's a good idea to discuss a deal. If we're not sure about that, we're not making a traditional exit transaction. Yeah. If someone says, I would like to sell my company, I think I'm done with this, and I built something which I'm proud of. Good luck, and all fine with that, but not then Stillfront is not the right acquirer or investor. So we would like to take on people that would continue to build their businesses, and that we think we have a good structure for.
Okay, and so kind of a final question from me before we open up to audience questions. So when's the next acquisition?
As we said, we have scanned over, soon it's actually 1,100 studios. We constantly speak with 10, 20 and follow them and see that we come along, basically. So, and we do that now. So I don't know, it could be 0, or it could be 10.
We never know.
The next, no, it's when it's signed, sealed, and delivered, we know.
Just make sure you keep that criteria of 1 in 200.
We still do. We
That
still
would
do.
be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. But I think to finish on that, I think one of the things that to me was very convincing and I thought was very useful is when we started talking and we had other like potential how could I say it parties, and I think the thing that convinced me was this decentralized approach and actually. You giving us a chance to actually speak with the other studios, meet the other studios that have been part of the Stillfront family, and kind of see that all that you're saying and all that you were speaking was actually really what was happening. So that was very useful. So we're very happy to be part of this growing family, and I think it's an interesting time in the industry right now. I think there's going to be a lot more consolidation going forward. I think the model the Stillfront has is quite unique in that space. So I think it's really interesting. So it's great to be a part of it, and I know the team really enjoys it. And I know one of the things that was key for you was when you came to eRepublik, and the first thing that you told me, like the team came, and I didn't present almost anything. It was a team here that presented what we were doing and how we were doing it and all that. And you just saw the depth of talent that we had here in the Bucharest studio. And you're like, man, this is exactly what we like, and I saw that in the other studios as well. So
yeah, that's perfect.
So that made really a lot of sense. Great. I think we're going to open up for questions for anyone who's got. I think we've got how much time? 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes should be.
Yeah.
So we have time. I see one here.
So you said there are bad publishers and there are some good mobile publishers. Can you give some examples of publishers that you would recommend working with?
You mean for mobile or
for mobile?
For free to play or for premium?
For free to play.
Oh.
No, I don't think that's. This is recorder, so I don't think so. I think it might differ depending on what needs you got, but I'm just saying my message is to be careful about that selection process and really to go into put the energy into understanding what the contract says, because again I say there are good ones out there, so I will not try to discredit them in any way, but I know I've seen so many times only the last year with developers that has 1 or 2 good products and they have a great opportunity, and they come to us too late, so to speak, because they have already entered into an agreement which basically more or less capped the upside in the business, and they can't really get out of it. So and they still don't have the friend when it's needed, because then they would not get the support from the publishers. So I'm just saying, without pointing out the good ones or the not so good ones in my vision, in my perspective, be very careful about the selection process and think about what will happen in the different scenarios of success, mid-success, and failure.
I think if you want to have to build on that, I think if you want to have a small success where the publisher gets most of the upside, there's some okay publishers for mobile free-to-play. If you want to go to the next level, and I would still only go there if you really need the development money up front. If they don't give you any development money up front, forget about it. If all that they say is, oh, but don't worry, we have great relationships with Apple and Google, so we'll get you featured, run away. Really run away. But basically, if what you're looking for is to have a really strong, powerful, free-to-play game, and I think almost any option other than the publisher is better. Come to me for angel money.
And I also think that, which is a bit surprising to many, just a last comment on that one, is when you're, I mean, if it's a failure, if the product doesn't fly, whatever you do, I mean, then it's a very clear situation. If it's a success, then you have something to share. So then you can say that it was a success, yes. Then you might think about, how did it become a success, and what was the element? But still, it's a happy problem. The tricky thing, which is not obvious, but is very clear for me now, is that when you're in between, so you have a fairly successful thing, then it's super simple. The revenues are not enough to make both the publisher and the developer happy. Then when you run into serious problems.
One tip on that that I could share with you, one way to get around that if you're really desperate and your only choice is to do a deal with a publisher, is put a amount of revenues per month where if the game goes below that amount, whatever that amount would be for you, you can take the game back. That would be my tip, if really you have no choice.
And I can add also that Stillfront has moved that path. We started just 18 months ago, we had 60% was not self-published. Now we have 90% self-published. So we're definitely walking that way.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one there. Again, apologies to those of you that work for publishers. I have nothing personally against you.
I work for a publisher. So thanks a lot for the super interesting discussion. I wanted to ask you if you see this consolidation going, let's say, higher, and your company, your joint companies now being incorporated into a top 5 gaming company. Is this an opportunity for you to reach a next level eventually, to access, I don't know, top of the mind brands, markets that you don't access right now? Is it something that you are dreaming about, or is it something that doesn't fit with this middle class of gaming company where you are establishing right now?
You want to start with that? Or?
Yeah, I think it's if I understand the question correctly, I think it contains several answers to that, the topic that you bring. One is on the studio level, which I think you could answer better. One is on the Stillfront level, on the family level, so to speak. And I think that what we see is that I often get the question, how large could Stillfront be and still have the same structure? And honestly, I don't know, because we're not measuring it in absolute numbers. We're measuring it that we can keep the vision going, that we can decentralize the way that we really believe is the way for a modern gaming company to look like. But I think we can be quite large. Getting to a quite large size, whatever that is, significantly larger than now, which we are heading, in the direction we're heading, we will be able to do other things also on the group level. For instance, we can finance purchasing or getting a licensed IP, a global IP, which is very, very hard for a small studio to do. But that is very probable that we will be able to do, for instance, on the group level. We can get the better trading conditions, etc. So there are some benefits of just being a mere size, and also when the market
you
is
did the
not
celebrity endorsement for the football game as well, no?
Sorry?
You did the celebrity endorsement for the football game.
Thank you. So we made an investment in July, mid-July, with a company called OFM. They have 2 products, OFM, and also a product on its way out, mobile, called Football Empire. And we did strike a deal with Jürgen Klopp, for you that are interested in football, which I am. That was a super cool deal. So we have signed up with Jürgen Klopp to be the brand ambassador for the game, which is soft launch later this autumn. So I think that I know definitely that the draft agreement compared to the one that we actually signed, and we made the investment during that process, was much, much better trading conditions for Football Empire. Yeah. And they were also happy at the agencies of Jürgen Klopp, because it was a less risk from their perspective, investing their brand into that product. Yeah.
I mean, to answer your question, actually, I think that with this decentralized approach, and the reason we kind of joined Stillfront is we actually we learned the hard way that that's how you need to do it, even at the studio level. So at eRepublik Labs here, we're really divided by game teams, and each game team has its own P&L and the full responsibility on the game and all that. And we're seeing that the same way at the studio level with Stillfront. And that means that we went from a point where, I remember the beginning of eRepublik, we were hiring a lot of people. There was a lack of responsibility about things. We had a lot of vertical teams, all this sort of stuff. And we went for that decentralized approach. And we saw the results were absolutely outstanding. The team really became extremely strong. And we're seeing really, really strong results within eRepublik, and we're seeing also within Stillfront. So to answer your question, I really do not see eRepublik now or Stillfront as a middle class. I think we're going to go for the top. I think we're going to be one of the best game companies in Europe for sure. And I've seen quite a lot because A is an angel investor, and also through Atomico, where I advise on game investments. I'm very close, and I've seen up close how Supercell operates and how Rovio operates, and I can assure you the Stillfront has nothing to envy those companies. Just revenues for now. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I'm curious about the selection process. You said that you had like 1,000 candidates and it took you approximately 2 or 3 years. So that would mean an average of 1 day per candidate. I'm curious about how do you decide if it's worth continuing with a candidate, with a studio that applied, or you say, okay, this studio is a no-go, we need to look elsewhere. So how do you decide, and how quickly do you do that?
Good question. Approximately 80 to 90% takes 5 minutes, because for different reasons, it does just don't fit into our model for reasons that we could look at. They don't have a product history of developing own products. They have been contractors, which could be good if we see the opportunity. So it's not automatically disqualifying, but it's a tough one. It could be the size of the group, or the track record is not there, or, I mean, we get quite a lot of information without being in dialogue, and that's just because the fact that the network we have within the whole group is quite extensive. People that has been in the industry for, I mean, David Watley in the US, our heading our studio, the founder of Simitronics, he has been the keynote speaker for 20 years, so building online games since the 80s actually. Still working, still earning a lot of money, fantastic. So the amount of people we know in the industry makes us really being able to quite quickly say that that company, they have something which we can expand. That one we're hesitant about. So it's not that we meet with all of them or talk to them. The 10 to 15% that's left, we initiate some talks to. Some of them are not interested and we can't describe the possibilities. Others have, we don't agree on valuation, or it could be a number of things. But often the key thing is that if we mutually see how we can take this to the next level, that's the key element. And sometimes it's a lot about culture, it's a lot about design, really feeling that we can build this to the next level. So, and that's a lot of soft values in parallel with the hard criteria, obviously. So we put in a lot of mileage in those processes, of course, but it's not that we talk to the 1,100. It's 10% of that.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, once companies go through the first filter and all that, I think what you're really good at is, if it's going to be a mobile free-to-play game company, obviously, then Jorgen will share with us, and we will review the game and all that. So let's say that the bullshit meter is that doesn't really work, because we've been doing this for 10 years now, so we understand what a free-to-play mobile game looks like when it works.
Yeah, and then I'm not doing all the work, just as you mentioned earlier, that in your case, you spoke with the Bytro guys in Hamburg and with David and his team, and I believe strongly in that. It's not only Alexis meeting with me or Alexis meeting with David, it's the broader team. So I met with Mihai, who is here, and a lot of people here, as well as you met with several of the guys at Simitronics. So it's a broader interface prior to making the deal, actually, and that's all good.
There's a lot of experience sharing. I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah.
One more.
So one more.
So all right.
Is there any more? No? There's no publisher that wants to shout at me? No? By the way, I do think that...
I'll ask one.
Yeah, go ahead.
A light one to close the session. Your favorite moment in your career up to now?
My favorite moment, it's now. No, but I've been as I said, I built 4 companies. I founded 4 companies and rebuilt a number of others, and I'm doing some investments as well. But I'm absolutely passionate about Stillfront, and really to see whether I'm wrong or right in trying to create a really modern gaming company with this decentralized structure. My absolute vision is that that will create a more fast and more high-quality company over time. That is the best moment.
I think for me, there's quite a few best moments, and they all can be described when I see the team I work with get to such a level of knowledge and capacity and all that they don't really need me anymore for most things. That's a good moment.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Alexis and Jorgen.
Thank you.
Thank you.